What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic. So, it's currently 2024, and Marvel Champions has been out for almost 5 years now. And as we've talked about before on this channel, I am a firm believer that the core set has stood the test of time. So, we are going to be taking a deep dive of the core set, which is the first product in Marvel Champions. So, the release date is November 1st, 2019, and then this is the core box right here. And in the core box, we have the stun tokens, confused tokens, or the stats cards, I mean. And then we have the tough stats card as well, and all the tokens that you need to play the game. And the first hero that we have is Peter Parker's Spider-Man. So let's take a look at Peter Parker's kit. So this is his alter ego card, and on the flip side of it is the Spider-Man, the hero form of the card. So Peter Parker has 3 recovery, hand size of 6 and 10 hit points, which is the standard even nowadays. So whenever you're looking at alter ego, this is kind of what you want to shoot for. If they have 3 recovery, that's normal. If they have any more, that's considered very good. If you have a hand size of 6, that's considered normal and good. And then some alter egos might have a little bit less, which is considered bad. And then the hit points of 10 is very standard as well. Having less is considered low, having more is considered high. In his hero form, Spider-Man, he has 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense, hand size of 5, and 10 hit points. So the hit points are going to be the same as the alter ego. The hand size of 5 is very normal, that the hero form has 1 less hand size than the alter ego form here. And then for a stat line of 1, 2, 3, this is the stat line that we usually want to shoot for nowadays is a 2, 2, 2 stat line. So having 2 thwart instead of 1 and having 2 defense instead of 3 defense. It still equals out to the same like number, like right, 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. This also equals out to 6. So it's still the same kind of curve, but having that 2 thwart is a little bit more valuable than having that extra defense. And then let's take a look at his alter ego ability and hero ability. So scientists generate a mental resource limit once per round. This is a very strong ability even today, because every single time you flip over to alter ego, not only do you have the hand size of 6, but you get +1 extra resource. So it's effectively having 7 resources in your hand, which is a very good ability and is very thematic, right? Because Peter Parker's always flipping over, taking off his Spider-Man mask, going to like the science room in his alter ego, and he's experimenting with stuff, trying to figure out ways to combat whatever villains that he's facing by whatever new inventions that he has. With his hero ability, Spider Sense, it's interrupt when the villain initiates an attack against you, draw 1 card. So this is also very thematic, right? Every single time the villain is about to attack Spider-Man, his Spider Sense goes off, he senses it coming, and you get to draw that extra card, have an extra option in your hand, and an extra resource. So even to this day, this hero ability and this alter ego ability are super duper powerful. And even though he has a hand size of 6 and a hand size of 5, which is the norm, drawing an extra card in hero form, which will happen almost every turn because the villain's almost always going to attack you, you effectively have a 6 card hand size. And in your alter ego, even though your hand size is 6, you actually get that 1 extra resource, so it's almost like having 7 cards. So in combination with this hero ability and his alter ego ability, his economy is very, very good and still one of the top economy heroes in the game to this day. Okay, let's take a look at his hero-specific ally, Black Cat. 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points. This is kind of the standard stat line for a 2-cost ally, but she doesn't take consequential damage for attack activations, and there are very few allies that have this. So it's probably around like 5 or less allies in a game that do not take consequential damage for attack activations. Actually, I'm wrong about that because the recently introduced pool aspect has a bunch of allies that don't take consequential damage, but you have to play the pool aspect, so this is still a pretty rare thing. Anyways, this is still a very good card. For 2 costs, she's very cheap and she can stay in the game forever if she's always attacking every turn. As a force response, after you play Black Cat, discard the top 2 cards of your deck. Add each card with a printed mental resource. This card's way to your hand. So this is a force response, so you must trigger it. This card and 2 cards can be bad. It can also be good if you're trying to fish for some cards, like especially late game when you're trying to fish for Spider-Man's big attack card, Swing Web Kick. This is a mental resource, so Black Cat can help you mill down your deck a little bit to try to get that card. So yeah, she's still a great ally to this day, and I would say that she's still one of the better hero-specific allies. Okay, so next we have Backflip. This is a 0-cost event. Interrupt, when you would take any amount of damage from an attack, prevent all the damage. And there are 2 copies of Backflip here, so this is the other copy of it. And so Backflip is still to this day one of the best defensive cards in the game, and in my opinion, it is the best defense event in the entire game still right now, because it's a 0-cost event. If it's 1 cost or 2 cost, then you have to pay for it, which makes it a little bit more situational. But being zero cost means every single time during the villain phase, whenever the villain is attacking you, and you can use this during your hero phase as well if the villain's attacking you during the hero phase for whatever reason. But usually the villain will be attacking you during their phase. And every single time you can see the boost card first, and when you would take any amount of damage, you can evaluate, okay, it's only 2 damage, I'm just going to take it. Or it's like 10 damage, I need to use a backflip. So you can always evaluate that, knowing what the damage is. This will be the last step. And yeah, it's an amazing card. Zero cost, you can prevent all that damage. Yeah, still like the best defensive event to this day. And note that it's an interrupt, not a hero interrupt, right? So we look at enhanced Spiral Sense, it's a hero interrupt. Since it's just a regular interrupt, that means you can use it in your alter ego as well. So if for whatever reason you're getting attacked in alter ego, which does happen sometimes, you can use a backflip to prevent all that damage. Okay, so next we have enhanced Spider Sense. This is a 1-cost event. Hero interrupt. When a treachery card is reviewed from the encounter deck, cancel its 1 reviewed effects. So this is a hero interrupt only, so you must use this only in hero form. It is a 1-cost event, so not as good as a 0-cost backflip because you do have to pay for it. And if you're using this during the villain phase, let's say you have 5 cards in your hand or 6 cards in your hand if you're Spider-Man because you drew a card earlier. If you use Enhanced Spider Sense, you're playing this card and you need a resource to pay for it. So you're losing 2 cards from your hand, which gives you less stuff to do during the player phase. So it's a little bit not as good as backflip, obviously. But having a treachery card cancel is still very, very valuable and has a lot of times where it is very useful. So even to this day, not every hero will have an interrupt that cancels a treachery card. So I still think it's a very valuable card to have to this day. There are better versions for it, but I think that this fits Spider-Man specifically. And it says when a treachery card is reviewed from the encounter deck, cancel its when reviewed effects. So that means if it's a card that has a treachery that has like Surge, you only cancel the when reviewed effects, so the Surge will still trigger. So once again, not the best cancel, but having a cancel at all is still very, very good, and it's still better than any aspect card that cancels a card. So I think this is an amazing card, and I don't think it's been power crept at all. I think it's still a valuable card that I would like to have in a lot of the newer heroes. You also get 2 copies of this in Spider-Man's kit. Next, we have the Swing Web Kick. So this is Spider-Man's big attack event. He has 3 copies of it. It's also his only attack event. So this is a 3-cost card, 3-cost event. Hero action attack, deal 8 damage to an enemy. So this kind of set the cost curve for damage at the time, and it's still kind of the standard for damage here. So it's a 3-cost event doing 8 damage. So that's what you usually want to shoot for whenever you're looking at damage. This is considered good. 3 for 8 is, yeah, that's just a standard. And even to this day, in my opinion, there's been no card that has outright power crept this card. So every single new identity-specific attack event goes somewhere around this card, right? The closest example that I would say for a power creep is Wolverine, who got released very recently with the Mutant Genesis wave. He has a 3-cost event called Lunging Strike, and it also does 8 damage to enemy. And it says that if you pay for this card using Wolverine's Claws, then it also gains Overkill. So that card has the same 3 for 8 if you just play it. But if you use the Claws, it has Overkill. So in my opinion, that's not necessarily power creeping, because if you use Wolverine's Claws, you have to take 3 damage, which is the cost of the card, in order to play it. So even though outright the card has more effects, there is a little bit of a balancing factor because you have to take that 3 damage. And still to this day, there is no outright card that does like 3 costs for 9 damage. Anything that does the same or more or less has some sort of way to outbalance it. So I think that this card definitely still stands the test of time, and it would still be a great card if it was an aspect card, because yeah, I mean, I think everyone would include it in an aspect deck, like an aggression deck, if this card could be an aspect card. So it's still a very good card, and yeah, in my opinion, no power creep there. And next we have Anime. She's a 1-cost support. Alter Ego action, exhaust Anime, heal 4 damage from Peter Parker. Well, we don't have 1 copy of this. It is a unique card here. So 1-cost support will stay on the field. You can only use this in your Alter Ego. And every single time you exhaust her, she heals 4 damage from Peter. Super duper powerful card. In my opinion, it is still the best healing support to this day and the best healing card, period. There are different variants of it, right? There's Venom has one where it's a 1-cost support where you can choose to either heal 3 damage or draw 1 card. So it's arguable which one's better. In terms of pure healing, I definitely take full advantage of the 4 damage that you're healing from Peter Parker. So yeah, I mean, I think there still is no card that outright does what Aunt May does. and there's events, right? But events you can play in hero form a lot of the time. So it would be like a one cost event that heals 4 damage from your identity, but then it goes away. And may just stays forever on the field for paying that one cost one time, and constantly healing 4 is crazy. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any power creep on this card. Still the best healing card to this day. And then let's take a look at the next cards here. So we have Spider-Man's only Thought removal card, the Spider Tracers, and he has 2 copies of that in his kit. One cost upgrade attached to a minion. So when you play this card, you don't have to be in hero form. You can play it in Arch Eagle or hero form. You attach to a minion, and then when attached minion is defeated, remove 3 threat from a scheme. So I love this card for its thematics, right? Spider-Man always throws his little Spider Tracers and it attaches to a minion or whatever. And whenever you defeat the minion, you can remove 3 threat from the scheme. So it's kind of helping you figure out the villain schemes because you're kind of following the minion. So yeah, very cool thematic card. But this card is not very good because you need to have a minion in order to remove Thor. And since Peter only has 1 Thor in his with his hero stats right here, right? He only has that 1 Thor anyways, and he has no other Thor removal card. That makes his Thor removal not very good. I think that is still fine and fair and fun because you can kind of build around that and try to build a fun deck to compensate for that. But yeah, this card is not a good card. However, I do not think that it has been power crept. So there are definitely better cards than this card, but there's no outright better version of the card, right? So there's no such thing as like a 0 cost upgrade that when the attached minion is defeated, remove a 3 threat from a scheme, or there's no like other 1 cost upgrade that removes 4 or 5 threat from a scheme whenever the minion is defeated. So even though this is not the best card, it's still very good value for situations that arise where you can use it, right? I've definitely used this, multiple times when it comes up. Even the situations are rare. If you have a minion and you have this card, you attach the minion and remove an easy 3 threat, and 1 cost for removing 3 threat is very good. It's just contingent on you defeating the minion, right? And that's the reason why situational are not as good. But still to this day, I don't think there's any power creep for this. Next we have the web shooters here. This is a 1 cost upgrade, and it comes in with 3 web counters, right? As a hero resource, exhaust the web shooters and remove 1 web counter from here to generate a wild resource. So I love this card, super duper thematic, right? Like Spider-Man always runs out of web fluid, so you're using those web shooters to give you some resources, and then whenever you run out of web fluid, then it gets discarded, and then the web shooters are done. And then you either play another one or play it again. So Spider-Man does have 2 copies of this. This is still a great card to this day. It's very high tempo, right? Having a 1 cost card that gives you 3 resources in later phases is very valuable and still very good. In my opinion, having a permanent resource generator is better, right? So Captain America has like a Super Soldier Serum. It's a 2 cost upgrade, and it can generate a physical resource forever, like once per turn forever. So I think that's a lot more valuable than web shooters, but at the same time, it is 1 more cost, so it's a little bit lower tempo. So to this day, there is no directly better version of the web shooter. There are better versions depending on what you want for preference, but the web shooter to me still stands the test of time because it's still the epitome 1 cost upgrade, and then you get that three resources for future turns. Next we have the webbed up here. Spider-Man has 2 copies of this card. It's a 4 cost upgrade, hero form only, attached to an enemy, max 1 per enemy, and a force interrupt. When an attached enemy would attack, this card would instead then stun that enemy. So super duper powerful stun card. It can block the enemy for 2 attack activations, which is very powerful. And even to this day, there is no version of this card which is a outright better version, right? So for example, one of the new heroes that was just teased, Iceman, he has a 3 cost upgrade. I think it's called Frozen Solid. So it's a little bit cheaper than Webbed Up, which is good. And then basically you freeze an enemy, and the next time that enemy would activate, so either if they scheme or they attack, you cancel the activation and you give them a copy of Frostbite, right? So basically that's like the newest card that's came out so far, and that card does not outright beat Webbed Up, right? If you are facing an enemy where you want to cancel their attacks, Webbed Up is still better because you're blocking 2 attack activations for 4 costs. Most of the time though, I do personally think that Frozen Solid is a better card because it's more versatile, being a 3 cost card and being able to block either a scheme or an attack activation. I think it's more valuable, but at the same time, it's only 1 activation. Whichever activation happens first, the card goes away, and then that's it. For the Webbed Up, after the Webbed Up goes away, you still stun that enemy. So even to this day, there's no directly outright better version than Webbed Up, even though it's not a good card. So despite not being a good card, I don't think that it's necessarily been power cut because there's still situations where it's still better than whatever the new card is, even though those situations are rare. And then, so this is Spider-Man's obligation here. We're not going to really take a look at this stuff because these are like Nemesis cards here. So these are cards that go into the counter deck if Shadow of the Past gets pulled out, and then his Nemesis minion Vulture here. Okay, so for our next hero, it's going to be Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Let's take a look at her cards. So, oh, and then just to give my overview on Spider-Man, I still think that Spider-Man is a top 10 hero to this day. I still think he's one of the strongest heroes. And you guys can look at my playthroughs. I've beaten all the toughest villains with Spider-Man. So Expert Ronin, Expert Venom Goblin, all the newer villains as well, like Expert Mr. Sinister. So I still think that Spider-Man can easily hold his own, and he's still one of the most consistent villains, which can, yeah, one of the most consistent heroes, I mean, which can still defeat any villain on Expert mode fairly consistently to this day. Okay, so next hero is Carol Danvers. She's the second hero in the core set here. So in her alter ego, she has 4 recovery. This is considered a great recovery even to this day. Having more than 3 is always good. And then she has a hand size of 6, hit point of 12. Hand size is the standard. The hit points is very high. Having 12 hit points is good. Her styling here is 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 defense, hand size of 5, and 12 hit points here in the hero form. So same thing as Spider-Man, or not same thing as Spider-Man, but for that 2-2-2, she's a little bit under the curve, right? Only having 1 defense, but having the 2 thwart and 2 attack is good, and then the defense is the least valuable stat line to have, so it's okay because she still has that 2 thwart, 2 attack. Her hand size in hero form is 5, which is a normal, I mean, for having the hand size of 6 in alter ego, and the hit point of 12 is good. Okay, so her alter ego ability is Commander. Action, choose a player to draw 1 card, limit once per round. This is so powerful, and it's arguably the most powerful the most powerful alter ego ability even to this day. And I think that any alter ego would love to have this ability. So versatile. You're pretty much drawing an extra card, so you have a hand size of 7 every single turn, and you can choose another player to draw a card too if you want to give someone else an extra resource. So yeah, still the best, in my opinion, the best alter ego ability. And for her hero ability, it's Rechannel. Action, spend an energy resource, and a heal 1 damage from Captain Marvel, draw a card. So the thing with this is you have to be able to heal 1 damage because there's a little cost arrow that is required to draw that card. So if she's already at full hit points, you can't trigger this ability, but usually it'll be easy to take some damage and then constantly be using this to heal. This is still also a very, very good ability. It has a lot of synergy with a card like Clarity of Purpose, which is a leadership card that came out, which makes her even better. But yeah, I mean, you have to spend an energy resource, but then you're drawing a card for the energy resource, which is super worth it, and you get to heal 1 damage. So very powerful ability, very, very good. Definitely not as good as her alter ego ability, but still super, super good. And in conjunction with one another, you're drawing 2 cards. So you can use her hero ability right here, draw a card, flip down to alter ego, use this ability, and draw a card again. So yeah, super duper good. And just like Peter Parker, that increases her economy on both sides here. Yeah, Captain Marvel, in my opinion, is still one of the best drawing heroes in the game, if not the best drawing hero. And this is a card game, so drawing is always like one of the most powerful things. So I think that Captain Marvel is also another top 10 hero still to this day. Definitely S tier along with Peter Parker Spider-Man. She is still amazing and can handle every villain in Marvel Champions. So her hero specific ally is Spider-Woman here. 3 cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 2 hit points. So the hit points are a little bit low, but I mean, she has a good styling for being 3 cost. Her response is after Spider-Woman enters play, confuse the villain. This is a very, very powerful effect. Yeah, there is no outright better version of this card, right? One of the strongest basic allies that's considered a very good basic ally is Professor X, and he came out very recently along with the Mutant Genesis Wave. And he's a 3 cost ally. He has 3 thwart, 0 attack, 3 hit points, and when he comes into play, you can also confuse a villain. He gives you some other options too, right? You can also stun a minion instead, or ready up an X-Men character instead, but most of the time, his value is for that confusing the villain. So this is a core set here compared to one of the newest aspect cards, which is considered very, very good, or a basic card, I mean. Professor X is that basic card. In Spider-Woman, I think that, I mean, she's arguably better, right? She has 2 attacks, so you can at least do damage. She has 2 throw, which is less than Professor X's. Yeah, and then she can stay in play for more than a round because Professor X will leave play after the first round. So still a very, very good card. And let's go ahead and take a look at Captain Marvel's next card, Crisis Interdiction. This is her Thor event. So similar to Spider-Man Spire Tracer, but she actually has a Thor event. So this is a 2-cost event, hero action, remove 2 threat from a scheme. Then if you have the arrow trait, remove 2 threat from a different scheme. So this card is pretty trash. It's not that good, right? You need to have the arrow trait to really get any benefits out of it. And if you don't have the arrow trait, it's 2 cost for 2 threat. If we think about the Spire Tracer, that was only 1 cost for 3 threat. So definitely not that good of a card. Just not a lot of removal and high cost for it. But if you have the arrow trait, you can remove 2 threat from a different scheme, which is not that good because even in the core box, there's a card, it's called 4 Justice, where you can pay 2 costs to remove 4 threat from 1 scheme. And most of the time, I think being able to have that concentrated threat removal is more valuable because if there is not 2 schemes in play, then removing 2 threat from a different scheme doesn't help you at all. But I would argue that even though this card has definitely been power crept, right? It's not a good card. It's a trash card. It's been trash since the core set days because the core set has cards that power crept this card. And if this card came up with another card that was better than it, I would argue that that's not really power creeping. That's just, this card is purposely bad because Captain Marvel's economy and Captain Marvel's hero cards are so freaking good. So I think that this is a great way to balance her. This card will barely have useful situations, and it can be useful, sometimes, but most of the time it's not going to be a good card, and you're not really getting full value out of it just because it's just not a very good cost curve. But because of Captain Marvel, it's a fine card for her because of how powerful she is. So yeah, and then in her hero kit, she has 3 copies of the Crisis Interdiction. Okay, next let's take a look at Photonic Blast. She has 3 copies of this. This is her primary attack event. So this is a 3-cost event, and it's attack, hero action attack. Deal 5 damage to an enemy. If you pay for this card using an energy resource, draw 1 card. So this is also a very, very bad card, right? If we compare it to Spider-Man Swing Web Kick, 3 cost, he had 8 damage, and this is 5 damage. So 3 less damage for the same cost is terrible. But if you pay for using an energy resource, you can draw 1 card. So this card has also been quote-unquote power crept, but it's been power crept already by cards that came out along with it. So I will argue that it hasn't necessarily really been power crept, at least not unintentionally. And the reason why this card's like this is because Captain Marvel, she has these triple resource cards right here. So this, if you have this 1 card, this can pay for Photonic Blast by itself, and you draw a card. And Captain Marvel's already getting so much card draw that she can handle paying this 3 costs up front. For any other hero, a 3 cost up front is terrible, but for Captain Marvel, it's not that bad, and I actually get a lot of use out of this card when I'm playing her. So I think this is actually a decent card for Captain Marvel, especially with her triple resources here. So yeah, still not a bad card for Captain Marvel. And then let's take a look at her next card here. She has 2 copies of this. This is a resource card. Energy Absorption. It just has 3 energy resources. You can use it in Alter Ego or in hero form. So this, if you guys know anything about the way that I play, I love high economy heroes. This is an amazing card. Yeah, I wish that every hero would have a card like this. So yeah, this card has definitely not been power crept. There's been newer cards that are a triple resource, and it would be something like you can only use it in hero form or something like that. So there are worser versions of this card that's came out. And yeah, I think this is still one of the best resource cards, if not the best resource card in the game. Being a triple resource here, so good. Yeah, and I think that any hero would love to have this card. And this kind of outbalances a lot of her worser cards here, right? With the Crisis Interdiction and Photonic Blast. Okay, next let's take a look at her 1-cost support. So almost every hero will have a support card that you only use in, or that benefits you in Alter Ego, right? So for hers, it's a little bit more versatile. So 1-cost support stays on a field action, exhaust Alpha Flight Station, and discard 1 card from your hand, then draw 1 card. So you're just discarding a card to draw 1 card back. But if you are Carol Danvers, so basically if you're in Alter Ego, you can draw 2 cards. So you're throwing away a card to draw 2 more, which will give you that +1. So this card is effectively giving you a draw in Alter Ego, but you can also use it in hero form if you want to dump something that you don't want. So a very versatile card, amazing Alter Ego action, just helping you draw a card every single turn, right? Because you're drawing out 2 cards for dumping 1. So very, very powerful card, and it adds on to her massive drawing economy. So yeah, very strong card for Captain Marvel. Next we have Captain Marvel's Helmet. It's a 2-cost upgrade. She gets +1 defense, +2 defense instead if you have the aerial trait. So this card is not very good, just being a 2 cost and getting you the defense to get her to that 2/2/2 stat line. If you have aerial, then you get an additional 2 defense. So she'll have a 3 defense, but I mean, like I said earlier, defense is not the best card. Yeah, this is not the best card in the game, but I mean, it's all right. It's just kind of a trash card for her. This card's arguably definitely been power crept actually, because you have like Armor Vest, which is 1 cost and just gives you +1 defense. But once again, Armor Vest also came out in the core set, so it's hard to really say that this card was unintentionally power crept. I think it's purposely weak for Captain Marvel because she is such a strong hero. Oh, and I forgot to say about Alpha Flight Station. This is still one of the best support cards to this day. Yeah, just having that versatility in hero form and alter ego to draw 1 card or draw 2 is super duper good. Okay, next we have the Cosmic Flight. This is a 2 cost upgrade, and Captain Marvel has 2 copies of this. So she gains the aerial trait here. So if you play this card out, she now has an aerial trait for the Crisis Interdiction that we talked about earlier and for her helmet. It's a 2 cost upgrade, gains aerial, and as a hero interrupt defense. When Captain Marvel would take damage, discard Cosmic Flight and prevent 3 of that damage. So this is just a way for you to prevent damage. Yeah, it's just a very standard card. Not the best card in the game, but it helps for Captain Marvel getting that aerial. And I mean, it's fine for her. This card's not going to get that much use, but it'll help you soak in a lot of damage so you don't take it. Yeah, this card's arguably been power crept, but once again, not the worst thing. It still has its situational uses. Next, we have the Energy Channel here. 0 cost upgrade, so you play it for free. Max 1 per player, so even though there's 2 copies of it, you only play 1 at a time. Action, spend X energy resources and put X energy counters on this card. Hero action, so you can use anytime when you're in hero form. We can discard the energy channel. Do 2 damage to an enemy to a max of 10 for each counter on here. So you put the 5 counters on here, you can just release this for 10 damage. This synergizes so well with her energy absorption, right? Because you put in, this is going to be 3 counters, and then you can just blow this up for 6 damage. So a very versatile card. I think that any hero would love having this card because it just stays on the field and you don't have to hold it in your hand to adding it to your hand size, right? And then you can just add your energy counters on here throughout the game. And as Captain Marvel is drawing so many cards, any cards that you don't want, if it's an energy resource, you just stick it into the energy channel, and then you can do a big burst for 10 damage whenever you want. So yeah, super duper strong card. I would argue it's one of the best cards in the game, especially one of the best ways to do damage. Tuesday. Okay, so that's it for Captain Marvel. This is her obligation and her nemesis cards, Yon-Rogg, which comes out if you get Shadows of the Past. Okay, so let's look at our next hero here in the core set. We have Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk. So in her alter ego, she has 5 recovery. Super duper good. This is very, very high recovery even to this day. Yeah, very, very good because it's higher than 3. Hand size of 6, which is that standard that we're looking for, and 15 hit points, which is insanely high. I mean, I can't even think of any hero off the top of my head that has more hit points than her. Probably just Hulk, who has 18, but yeah, I mean, this is super duper good. She has an amazing alter ego stat line. Her ability here is I object. When threat will be placed on a scheme, prevent 1 of that threat, limit once per round, so you can use this during the villain phase. And I mean, it's always going to at least prevent 1 threat, so that is useful, but at the same time, it's not the best effect. It's not as powerful as Spider-Man generating a mental resource or Captain Marvel drawing a card. But I mean, everything is always balanced out in Marvel Champions because of this 5 recovery, hand size of 6, which is still great, and then 15 hit points. So I mean, I think that's fair having such an amazing stat line and having not as good of a alter ego ability. For her hero form, She-Hulk, 1 thwart, 3 attack, 2 defense. So still adding up to 6. 2 thwart would be very nice. And then having 3 attack is obviously super duper good. I don't think there's any hero in the game that has higher than 3 for any stat. So yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a pretty fair balance. Sure, her thwarting is not going to be as good, but having that 3 attack is so valuable because, man, 3 attack is pretty massive. And I would argue that having 3 attack is better than having a 2 thwart, 2 attack, just because having a 3 attack is going to help you kill so many minions. It's going to help you do so much. And then her hand size in hero form is 4, so that is not very good, right? We want to have at least 5, and having just 1 less hand size can be very detrimental, and that's kind of one of the big reasons why she's not considered as good, because of this 4 card hand size here. And then same hit points as an alter ego, 15. And then her ability here is Do You Even Lift? After you change this form, deal 2 damage to an enemy. So this is a very, very good hero ability. Every single time you flip over from Alter Ego to hero form, you can just do 2 damage. This is not considered an attack, so it will bypass stuff like guard. It will bypass retaliate. Just a very versatile and strong ability. Combined with her 3 attack, I mean, she can do 5 damage on the first turn with just her hero card. So very, very strong. She does a lot of damage, and She-Hulk is still one of the better damage dealing characters to this day. Yeah, okay, so let's take a look at her identity specific ally, Hellcat. So 3 cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points. Amazing stat line for being 3 cost. Having 2 thwart is invaluable. 3 hit points, so she can activate 3 times. And her action here for her effect, return Hellcat to your hand. For free, you don't need to pay any cost for it. So super duper good ally. I think it's still one of the best, hero specific allies in the game. Just very versatile. You can have her thwart twice, return to your hand, and then play her back down for 3 costs, and then she's no longer exhausted. You can have her thwart again or something like that. Yeah, very, very good ally here. And then we have the Gamma Slam. 4 cost event, hero action attack, deal X damage to enemy to a max of 15. X is the amount of damage you have sustained. So if you're at your max is 15 hit points, and if you're at 1 hit point left, then you have sustained 14 damage. So this is 4 cost for 14 damage. This card is good and bad. It works if you get the right situation. It is amazing and it's super duper thematic and fun. But I would argue that this is probably the most, of all the cards in the core set here that we talked about so far, this is probably going to be the most closely to being power crept card. And I'm talking specifically about Deadpool. So Deadpool has a card called This Card is Fire. It's a 3 cost event, and it's a hero action, deal X damage to enemy where X is equal to the amount of damage you have sustained, but there is no cap of 15. So you can artificially enhance your hero's hit points by playing something like Endurance, which will increase your hit points by 3. You can also get ourselves down like the Symbiote Suit, which will increase your hit points by 10. So even if you increase She-Hulk's hit points, the Gamma Slam will still max out at 15. Deadpool's card does not have a max. Yeah, so you can do like 30 plus damage with him, however high you get his hit points, but his hit points do only start with 9 instead of 15. So it's a little bit balanced out there, but I mean, the Discard Fire is definitely way better than the Gamma Slam because it's also only 3 costs, while the Gamma Slam is 4. And then another big thing, which helps balance out a little bit more, is that Discard Fire, if you have it in your hand whenever you end your turn, or whenever whenever you end your turn, I guess, so you're holding it onto it, you do have to take 1 damage because the card is literally fire. So that kind of like helps balance out with the Gamma Slam, but I mean, I think even with that, the Gamma Slam is still not like a directly worse version of that card because of the cap and all that stuff. And you only get 1 copy of it in She-Hulk's kit. So this is the closest card to being power crept, but even then, you could make the argument with, to taking 1 damage with this card's fire and how Deadpool has 9 hit points instead of 15. You can make the argument to why it's not necessarily power crept, but I would definitely admit that this card has been power crept a little bit. But as a whole, I don't think that it makes She-Hulk a power crept hero, even though this card is not as good anymore. Okay, so next we have the Ground Stomp. She has 2 copies of this card. 2 cost event, hero action, deal 1 damage to each enemy. So this is a super terrible card. I mean, there's situations where it can be useful, right? If there's a bunch of like drone minions that all have 1 hit point, then for 2 costs you can just wipe them all out. And this is a hero action, so it's not an attack activation. We're not a base attack activation, but not any attack at all. So this will bypass guard, it will bypass retaliate. So I mean, definitely will have its very niche uses, but it is a pretty terrible card. 2 costs to, at minimum do 1 damage is terrible. Even if it does 2 damage, it's still not good. If there's 2 enemies, it will do 2 damage, right? So this is a very, very terrible card. Yeah, and this card really hurts She-Hulk a lot too, just because it's usually going to be a dead card in your hand. Legal Practice is a 0 cost event. Alter Ego action, thwart. Choose and discard up to 5 cards in your hand. Remove 1 threat from a scheme for each card discarded this way. Also another terrible card. It's nice because it's an Alter Ego action, so you can remove threat from the main scheme while in Alter Ego. You can play for free with 0 cost, but you must discard cards to only get 1 threat per card discarded. So if you discard 5 cards, you're removing 5 threat. That is a terrible cost curve for it. The fact you can't even spend resources for it, right? So if you have resource generators, you can't do that. You have to straight up discard cards from your hand. This is an absolutely terrible card. It does not stand the test of time. Yeah, this card is not very good either. And she has 2 copies of this in her kit. Okay. Next we have the 1-2 punch. She-Hulk has 3 copies of this card. 1 cost event, after you make a basic attack using your attack, ready She-Hulk as a response. So this card is very good, but it's arguably been power crept, but it's still a good card. So this card, I mean, it's still very, very good to this day and one of the better cards in She-Hulk's kit. After she uses her 3 attack stat and makes a basic attack to exhaust, you can play this card as a response. It's only 1 cost, so you just play 1 resource for it, and you ready She-Hulk back up. She can swing again for 3 again. You can play another one, she swings for 3 again, play another one, she swings for 3 again, right? So she can do massive damage with the 1-2 punch, so this really adds on to her power. But at the same time, there are better versions, right? I think Limitless Stamina, this is a basic card. 1 cost event, if your hero has 14 or more printed hit points, then you can ready up your hero. So, I mean, the thing with 1-2 punch is that you have to make a basic attack, and it plays as a response directly after to ready up. Limitless Stamina, if you're exhausted, you can just play at any time to ready up. But then with Limited Stamina, it's not directly better just because you do have to have at least 14 printed hit points on your identity to use that card. So She-Hulk can use that card, so I do love including that card with her. But yeah, the 1-2 punch is still a valuable card even to this day, and it works particularly well with She-Hulk, who wants to attack and do that 3 damage. So still a good card, but not the best. Okay, then we have Split Personality. And I think that this card right here is going to balance a lot of these power crept cards that we saw earlier. So Split Personality is, to this day, one of the most unique, fun, thematic, and powerful cards in Marvel Champions. And this is kind of She-Hulk's bread and butter. The 3-cost event. Action, change your form, flip your identity card, and then draw up to your printed hand size. So She-Hulk is already a great flipping hero, right? Because she has this do you even lift where you deal 2 damage when you flip. You can flip 1 time from alter ego to hero or hero to alter ego. You can do that 1 time manually per turn. But if a card effect allows you to flip, then this does not count towards that 1 time. So you can still flip, use Split Personality, or use Split Personality and then still use your manual flip. So it gives you effectively 2 flips, and you can draw up to your printed hand size. That means if you're in hero form and you play Split Personality, you have 0 cards in your hand after you play it, right? So let's say you use 3 cards in your hand, 3 resources to play this 1 card for the 4-card hand size in She-Hulk. You play it, you flip over to alter ego, and then you're drawing 6 cards, which is complete insane, and you can flip straight back to hero form right after, and then use those 6 cards however you want. So, I mean, that is super, super good, and especially if you have an even larger hand size, you're already doing stuff with your hand, and then playing the Split Personality afterwards, I mean, that will give you an insane economy. So, yeah, this is like She-Hulk's best card. And I mean, there's no other card like it. It's super duper unique, super duper strong, super fun as well. Yeah, so very good card. And then next she has the Superhuman Law Division. This is her 1-cost alter ego support, alter ego action. So you must use only an alter ego, exhaust Superhuman Law Division, and spend a mental resource. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. Yeah, this is not very good. You have to use it only in alter ego, and you have to spend a mental resource every single time to remove that 2 threats. So not the best thing. It's always going to be 1 resource for 2 threat remove, and you have to pay 1 cost to get it on. It's not the worst card, but usually there's going to be better things to play, and there's better aspect cards in this card. So yeah, that card's not very good. And then lastly, we have 2 copies of Focus Rage, 2 copies of Superhuman Strength. So for Focus Raged here, this is a 3-cost upgrade. Hero action, exhaust Focus Rage and take 1 damage, draw 1 card. Yeah, it is good and bad. I'm not the biggest fan of this card because you have to take a damage. It's very similar to Avengers Mansion, right? Avengers Mansion is a 4-cost support card, and then if you exhaust, you can just draw 1 card for free. Even though it's 1 more cost, and this is a little bit cheaper, you can only use this one in hero form because it's a hero action, and you have to take a damage every single time. It's not the worst card, it definitely has its uses, and it's definitely not been power crept as there's no directly better version of it, even though I do think that Avengers Mansion is pretty much better. But yeah, I mean, this card is it's fine. It's not terrible. And then she has 2 copies of Superhuman Strength, 2-cost upgrade. She-Hulk gets +2 attack, which is great, but as a force response, after She-Hulk attacks, discard Superhuman Strength and stun the attacked enemy. So that makes it not as good because you only get it for really 1 use, for 1 attack. But the really cool thing is that they made a new ruling update with this card, is that if you cannot stun the attached enemy, then this card will stay after the attack. So this force response, which is forced, will not trigger if an enemy cannot be stunned. So if you defeat a minion, the minion is defeated, can't be stunned, you get that 2 attack forever. And if you're attacking a stalwart enemy, like Thanos or something, then he cannot be stunned, so this will also stay forever. So having that +2 attack forever would be invaluable in a situation where you can't pull it off, and then getting that stun might also be useful sometimes. So I think this is definitely not the worst card in the game, and there's definitely a lot of decks that build around it. So I think it's a very strong card as well. Okay, so that's it with She-Hulk. This is her nemesis stuff and her obligation. So She-Hulk, I think that she is still a very good hero, and I think she's actually still stronger than a lot of heroes that come out to this day. I have her around B tier. She's definitely not one of the top tier heroes in the game, but I don't think that she's been power cut. I think that there's still plenty of heroes that are not as strong as She-Hulk. Her biggest weakness is really these cards right here, these middle cards right here, the ground time and the legal practice. If they change these cards, she would be a lot better. Maybe more copies of Split Personality and Gamma Slam would make her better as well. But yeah, I mean, she's still a um, serviceable hero, and I would play through defeating Expert Venom Goblin with her, which many consider the strongest villain in the game. So I think that she can definitely pull her weight, and especially in multiplayer, she's going to be even better with that. Because that 4 hand size is not going to be as detrimental in multiplayer because you're going to have more time to set up and flip around to Alter Ego and back to hero form. So yeah, definitely a very fun and unique hero, and I get what they're trying to do with her. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that she's been outright power correct by anyone, and she's still very unique in her own right. Okay, so next we have Tony Stark Iron Man. So let's take a look at his cards. Tony Stark in his Alter Ego has 3 recovery, hand size of 6, 9 hit points. So the recovery and hand size are good, hit points are a little bit low. In his hero form, 2 Thor, 1 attack, 1 defense. So very, very low stat line, right? The 2 Thor is good and arguably the most valuable if you have to pick one then have 2 of, but he has low attack and low defense. He has 1 hand size and continuing that 9 hit points. So 1 hand size is absolutely terrible. Yeah, this is very, very bad. It makes him very, very slow. And having 1 hand size means you can't do anything if you flip over to hero form. But he does have this hero ability right here. You get +1 hand size for each tech upgrade you control up to a max hand size of 7. So Iron Man is very, very thematic because you're trying to build out a suit, and the more you build out a suit, it's very powerful. Right? We talked about earlier in hero form, you want to have the hand size of 5. Well, he can have a hand size of 7 in hero form, which is crazy because even just having +1 more hand size is so valuable. And then, yeah, so end game in hero form, he's going to be amazing, but early game, he's not going to be as good. In his Alter Ego, Futurist action, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card to your hand and discard the others. So this is effectively drawing you 1 card, similar to Carol Danvers' Alter Ego action, but you get to look at 3 cards and pick 1 to draw. So arguably even better than just drawing 1 card. So even though he has a hand size of 6, it's effectively 7 Alter Ego, and it gives him a lot of options as well as a Futurist. So I think this is a very thematic ability. And then his hero form is very thematic as well, getting up to a hand size 7 if you build out that suit. And then let's take a look at his hero-specific ally here. War Machine, 4-cost ally, 1 Thor, 2 attack, 4 hit points. This is okay. Definitely not very good. Too expensive for this. I think if it was 3 costs and 3 hit points, it would be a lot better. As an action, you can exhaust War Machine, do 2 damage to him, and then do 1 damage to each enemy. So there are some niche uses that you can do for it. If you want to do 1 damage to everyone, he can help you with board control with a bunch of weak minions. But not a very good ally. There's nothing that outright beats him, but I mean, you're not really going to be wanting to use him anyways. Next, we have the Repulsor Blast. So Iron Man has 3 copies of this card. So it's a 1-cost event. Do 1 damage to the enemy and discard the top 5 cards of your deck. For each printed energy resource discarded this way, do 2 additional damage to the enemy. So if you can discard 5 energy resources, it can do up to 11 damage. Some energy resource, if you get like a double energy, it can do even more than that. So it's low or high depending on how you build his deck. Overall, a very fun card, very thematic, because you're kind of burning away, so you got to mill down your deck. Yeah, it's a pretty balanced card. I don't think there's any card that outright beats it. At the same time, it's not like the best card in the game or anything like that. So yeah, definitely decent and very good for his time. Next, we have the Supersonic Punch. He has 2 copies of this attack event here. So this is a 2-cost event. Hero action, do 4 damage to the enemy, 8 damage instead if you have the arrow trait. So as we talked about before, 3 costs for 8 damage is the standard card that we're looking for, like with Spider-Man Peter Parker with the swing web kick. 2 costs for 4 is not very good. At the same time, it still lines up with a lot of aspect cards, but hero cards should be stronger than aspect cards. And then if you can do 2 for 8, I mean, that is very, very good, right? Because instead of being 3 costs, it's only 2 costs, doing the same damage. So Iron Man is going to be very contingent on getting that aerial trait, but late game, it's super easy for you to get aerial. Early game is going to be a little bit harder. Iron Man is really the epitome of a build out here where you're trying to build out, and after you're all set up and you have your suit all built out, then you're super powerful. But before then, he's not going to be as good. 2 copies of that. Pepper Potts, 3 cost support, resource exhauster, generate the resource at the top card in your discard pile. So very, very strong card. If you have a double resource in your top card, you want to start playing out that way so that you can have Pepper Potts generate a double resource for you. Stark Tower, 2 cost support, Archer Eagle action, exhaust this card, and you can return a tech upgrade from your discard to your hand. It has to be the topmost one. Very valuable card if you have to discard one of your tech upgrades for futures or whatever reason. Yeah, it's a great card to get it back. And then let's take a look at his tech upgrades here. So first one's going to be the Arc Reactor. You can exhaust the Arc Reactor, ready Iron Man. So this is just a tech. It has a tech trait, and it is an upgrade. So this will count to one of the things that Iron Man needs to get his hand size up. So you just want to try to get the hand size up as soon as possible so you can flip over to hero form. You can exhaust the Arc Reactor to ready Iron Man. Extremely powerful effect. Very few heroes in the game get this permanent readying type of thing, so having this is invaluable. And 2 cost is a great cost for it even to this day. Next we have his Mark 5 helmet and Mark 5 armor. This is a 3 cost tech upgrade right here. This one's a 1 cost tech upgrade. This one gives him +6 hit points, super good, just make him super tanky. This one you can exhaust it to remove 1 threat from a scheme, and each scheme if you have the aerial trait. So it can be situational, can be very good. It's always going to be useful because you can always exhaust it to ping up that 1 threat. So 2 very good cards even to this day. And then he has 4 more tech upgrades here. He has 2 copies of his rocket boots and 2 copies of his power gauntlets, right? 1 for each arm and then 1 for each leg. So these are 2 costs. These are 1 cost, just getting him to increase his hand size. For the gauntlets, you can exhaust them, do 1 damage to an enemy, and 2 if you have the aerial trait. This is so good when you're built out because if you're stunned, you can just exhaust 1 gauntlet. It removes the stun because it's considered an attack here with the attack keyword. Use the other gauntlet to attack. And then, yeah, so it just gives them so much versatility, and you can do so much damage every single turn with these upgrades already on the field. So there's really nothing else like it. And with the rocket boots here, you get +1 hit point. That's always going to be valuable for just 1 cost. In a hero action, you can exhaust the rocket boots, spend a mental resource, and gain the aerial trait until the end of the phase. So this is the thing that you need to get the aerial for all the other tech upgrades to get their full value. And a lot of his cards, like the Supersonic Punch, to get the full value as well. But yeah, this is a yeah, super duper good card. Yeah, and it adds to his hand size being a tech upgrade. So these are Iron Man's Nemesis cards. So for Iron Man, I think that he is still an amazing hero. I think he definitely stands the test of time. He's still one of my favorite heroes to play to his game. I think that to this day, I mean, he is an A-tier hero in my opinion. I think he's very, very powerful. He can still hold his own against, I think, every villain in Marvel Champions, but he just has a very, very slow and fairly inconsistent start because of this 1 hand size here. You have to start in Arch Eagle, but that's kind of the challenge and that's kind of the fun of playing him, and it's definitely worth it if you can survive that early phase and get him built out. He is unstoppable. So yeah, Iron Man is very fun to play, very thematic, and yeah, he definitely stands the test of time. Okay, so the last and final hero in the core box is T'Challa, Black Panther. So on his Archer Eagle side here, he has a recovery of 4, and then Foresight is his setup ability. Search your deck for a Black Panther upgrade and add to your hand, then shuffle your deck. Hand size of 6, hit points of 11, so the hand size is good. Hit points is very good as well because it's more than 10. And it's a 2/2/2 stat line, so this is kind of the standard that we're looking for here, so it's a very good stat line. And then hand size of 5, which is normal in hero form, same hit points 11, very good. Retaliate 1, so this is a decent ability. He doesn't really have anything else, which kind of sucks, but I mean, this isn't a bad ability at all, having that retaliate. So every single time the enemy attacks you, you can do 1 damage back to the attacking character. So the recovery for 4 is very good here as well. And then he kind of has blank text box, right? Like his text box is kind of blank because having to retaliate, it's fine, but you can't really do anything else. And in his Archer Eagle, after the setup where you get a Black Panther upgrade and add to your hand, sure, you have that strong start, right? He has 6 cards in his hand. You get 1 extra card because of the setup. So it's good having that 7 card start, but after you start the game, he doesn't really have any other effect. So it's not the best thing, but you do get that strong start. Okay, so let's take a look at his hero specific ally. 2 cost ally, 1 throw, 1 attack, 3 hit points. This is considered a very good stat line for a 2 cost ally because it's 3 hit points, so she can activate 3 times. Response after Shuri enters play. Search your deck for an upgrade and add to your hand. Shuffle your deck. Super duper good with Black Panther. You can get any one of his Black Panther upgrades, but if you have any other upgrades in your deck, like an aspect card, she can get that as well because it doesn't say Black Panther upgrades, any upgrade. So extremely powerful card, and getting that extra card to your hand helps pay for her cost anyways. So she is an extremely powerful ally, still one of the best to this day. Next, we have Ancestral Knowledge. One cost event as an alter ego action. Choose up to three different cards in your discard pile and shove them in your deck. It helps if you want to get different copies of cards that are very good. You can just put them back in your deck. And it doesn't have to be Black Panther cards. You can get any cards. So this card is a little bit more situational, but it definitely will have its uses as well. So not a bad card, and there's nothing really else like it. Next, we have Wakanda Forever. He has 5 different copies of this card. This is the energy resource one, mental resource, physical resource, and these two are the wall resource ones. So this is his big event here. So Wakanda Forever, it's a 1-cost event. Hero action, resolve the special ability of each Black Panther upgrade you control, and you can resolve it in any order. So this card, we'll go a little bit more into it later, but it's efficient depending on the amount of Black Panther upgrades that you have, right? If you have a bunch, then it's super efficient at just 1 cost. If you only have 1, then it's not going to be as good. And if you have none, this is a dead card. So it just kind of depends on the upgrades, which we'll look at in a little bit. But anyways, this card is nothing really else like it. I like how they kind of uniquely built Black Panther, right? You get his upgrades, and you Wakanda Forever to unleash all the upgrades, kind of unleashing the pieces of his suit. Yeah, which is a very fun and unique mechanic. Next, we have my favorite card. Well, not my favorite card in this kit, but one of my favorite cards is definitely the resources here. So Vibranium, similar to Captain Marvel's triple resource card, Black Panther also comes with resource cards in his hero kit. This is a double resource, double WoW resource, which is the most valuable type of resource in the game because it can be any resource that you want, right? It can be a energy, physical, or mental, and double. And you have 3 copies of it here, right? So this is another copy. Very, very good. I love the Vibranium. Yeah, you can use it in hero form or alter ego. It just helps you get set up, helps you pay for a lot of things. So very good card. Yeah, and 3 copies of it. So now we get to my favorite card in Black Panther's kit, which is the Golden City. So it's that alter ego support here. This one is 2 costs, so a little bit more expensive, but you have Vibranium to pay for it. That's an alter ego action. Exhaust this card and then just draw 2 cards. So in my opinion, this is probably the best alter ego support, if not the best alter ego support in the entire game. To this day, I mean, drawing 2 cards, you can build so many decks just building around this card because that card draw is insane. And I think that this makes up a lot for the fact that he doesn't really have any alter ego actions on his alter ego. So when you're flipping down, you don't get to do anything with his hero card, but you can exhaust the Golden City to draw 2 cards every single turn you flip down to alter ego. So yeah, as long as this card is not exhausted already, you're drawing 2 cards, which is massive. There's nothing else like it. Still one of the best cards to this day. Definitely one of the best alter ego cards. And then next we have his 4 Black Panther upgrades here. So each one of them is 2 costs. Let's go over them. With the Energy Daggers, which is specialist to deal 1 damage to the villain and each enemy engaged with the player that you choose, and then 2 damage instead if it's the final step in the sequence. Panther Claws, the specialist to deal 2 damage to an enemy, 4 instead if it's the last step in the sequence. Tactical Genius, remove 1 threat from a scheme, 2 instead if it's the final step in the sequence. And then the Vibranium Suit, move 1 damage from your hero to an enemy and 2 damage instead if it's the final step in the sequence. So this one's kind of healing you a little bit. So basically, these are just 4 cards, 4 upgrades just to stay on the field, and you can't trigger them because they just have a special here. So they just kind of stand there. You can't really do anything with them. But if you play a Wakanda Forever, it unleashes every single one of the upgrades that you have. And you can choose what order that you do. The one that you do last is the one that is the most powerful, right? So you can double the effects, right? So the Panther Claws would just do 2 damage to enemy, but if it's the last one, it does 4. Tactical Genius removes 1 threat from scheme, but if it's the last one, it can do 2. So if you're paying 1 cost for a Wakanda Forever and you get to move a damage, remove a threat, do 2 damage, and do 1 damage to the villain in each enemy engaged player, that is very, very good value for that. Unfortunately, it is a lot of setup, but if you can get this out, he's very, very powerful. But you do have to have multiple copies of the Wakanda Forever in your hand, which kind of limits him because even if you have these set up, if you don't have the Wakanda Forevers, it's not going to be as good. And yeah, that's it with Black Panther. These are his setup cards right here. So, or his Nemesis cards, I mean, in his obligation. So for Black Panther, I think that he is still a hero that stands the test of time. He's a solid B tier hero for me as well. I think that he can still beat a lot of the newer villains that came out today. I have video playthroughs of him defeating Expert Ronan, defeating Expert Loki. So I still think that he is a very strong hero that can definitely hold his own. And there's definitely a lot of weaker heroes that came out after him. And of course, there are better heroes as well. But yeah, I think Black Panther is still a very solid hero as well. Okay, so that's it with all the 5 heroes that came in the core set. Next, let's take a look at the aspect cards, and I'm going to go over them a little bit more quickly. So these are the cards that also came in the core box. These are just cards that you can put in every single hero deck, right? When you're building your hero deck, you must include the 15 hero specific cards that we went through earlier for each hero. But for the other cards in your deck, you can include anything you want if you choose an aspect, right? So if you choose aggression, you only choose aggression cards and basic cards. If you choose justice, you can choose justice cards and basic cards. So let's go over the basic cards that were included in the core box. So Mockingbird, she is a 3-cost ally. You get 4 copies of her in the core set, but you only include 1 per deck because she is unique. 1 Thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points. After she enters play, stun enemy. Very powerful effect. Still one of the best allies to this day, especially against villains that don't have Star and Study and can be stunned. She can come in for 3 costs, stun someone, and then she can still hang around, attack and thwart, and take a chump block. So yeah, very, very good ally. Still nothing really like her to this day. She's still, one of the best allies in the game and an easy include for a lot of people who like playing with Stasis. So yeah, I think Mockingbird definitely stands the test of time. Nick Fury is a 4-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points. Force response after Nick Fury enters play. Choose one. We can remove 2 that are from a scheme, draw 3 cards, or deal 4 damage to enemy. At the end of the round, if Nick Fury is still in play, discard him. So in my opinion, Nick Fury is still the strongest card to this day. He is the strongest card. Being a 4-cost ally is very expensive, but 2 thwart, 2 attack is well worth it. And then the fact that you can choose one of these options, and my favorite option is to draw 4 cards. That means, draw 3 cards. That means even though you're paying 4 to pay for him, you're effectively getting that back by drawing those 3 cards, and then you have this ally on the board. So extremely powerful ally. In my opinion, the strongest ally and the strongest card in the game still, even though he came in the original core set. You get 4 copies of him in the core box here, right? And then, and then the versatility, if you don't want to draw, you can do 4 damage to an enemy. You just defeat an enemy if you need to, right? Or remove 2 that from a scheme. And he can still activate, right? So he can still thwart or attack for 2, even though he must leave round at the end of the, even though he must leave play at the end of the round, you can always have him block for you. And then he'll just get defeated by taking a block. So yeah, like super duper powerful card. And I think, this is, if there's proof of why there isn't really any power creep, it's Nick Fury, because Nick Fury is the strongest card in the game, and he came out in the first part of the game with the core set. So super duper good card. Next we have Emergency, 0-cost event. Interrupt when a villain schemes, reduce the amount of threat placed on that scheme by 1. So it's nice because it's 0 cost, and you can play this in Archer Eagle or Hero form at the same time. Not a very good card, just preventing 1 threat. It's not going to be the most useful thing. So this card hasn't necessarily been power crept, right? Like there's no such thing as like a 0-cost event that like prevents 3 threat or something like that. But it's just not going to be that valuable because it's situational. It's an event, and you lose that resource from your hand if you're playing it down. So 4 cards of this, not a very good card. First Aid is a 1-cost event. Heal 2 damage from any character. And you can play this in Archer Eagle or in Hero form. This is a very decent card, right? There still is no card that outright beats this card. There are better versions of it in a hero kit, right? Like Spider-Man's Aunt May, or like hero cards will have specific cards where it's like 1 cost where you're healing 4, but it must be usually from your own hero or something like that. But yeah, just having this card right here, you can heal from any character. It allows you to heal from allies. This card is still viable. It still has not been replaced, and there's still much use for it if you want to heal up your allies. And it's situational, and it's versatile, so you can use it to heal your allies or to heal up yourself or another player. So very, very good card that stands the test of time. First Aid here. Next we have Haymaker. Haymaker is a 2-cost event, 4 copies of this as well. Hero action attack, deal 3 damage to enemy. So this card, I can definitely see, has been power crept, right? There are better versions of this card. At the same time, it's hard to say that because there's been no outright better version of this card. And one thing I do want to say about power crept, right? Even though I say some things are power crept, I do think that there's still weaker cards that are coming out today than a lot of cards in the core set. So even though cards are weaker, power crept to me means that you have to actually be a better version of that card. So I've been kind of using a mixed definition earlier, which is probably a bit confusing, and I apologize for that. But yeah, Haymaker, I don't think there's any basic card that's 2 costs and just does more damage than Haymaker. At the same time, there are aspect cards that have better effects for the same costs or more damage or something like that. So Haymaker is a very normal basic card, for the basic aspect. 2 cost, 3 damage, not very good. Most of the time you don't want to include because there's better versions, but if you have nothing else, it's not a bad card at all. So yeah, it can definitely get its uses, but there's usually going to be a better alternative if you have a decent enough card pool. So this is one of the few cards that I would say has the biggest power creep. in addition to emergency. But yeah, next we have the double resource here, so energy, genius, and strength. So these are just resource cards that you can include in a deck, which I always include because I love having extra resources here. It just generates 2 resources instead of 1 whenever you use it. And it's a max 1 per deck for each one, but you can include 1 genius, 1 strength, and 1 energy. Yeah, so you get a bunch of resources in the core set. Next we have Avengers Mansion. This is a 4-cost support, max 1 per player, exhaust Avengers Mansion. Choose a player, that player draws 1 card. Still one of my favorite supports to this day. Very, very powerful. I think it definitely stands the test of time. Yeah, you can include this card. There's nothing else like it, right? Sure, it's very expensive, but you're drawing 1 card every single turn. That's not just 1 resource, but it's also an extra option for you as well. So very good card. Expensive, but definitely well worth it. Helicarrier, similar to Avengers Mansion, right? It's a 3-cost support, max 1 per player. Exhaust Helicarrier and choose a player. Reduce the resource cost of the next card that player plays this phase by 1. So it's a 3-cost support, effectively helping you reduce the cost of the next card you play. So this is also a very good card that is still used in like a lot of decks to this day. Yeah, this card definitely stands the test of time as well. A very, very strong card, and arguably it's better than a lot of the newer supports that come out today as well. But yeah, very good card. And then, okay, Tenacity. Okay, this is probably the worst basic card, actually, not the Haymaker. So this is a 2-cost upgrade, Tenacity. Hero action, you must only use it in hero form. So you have to pay 2 costs to play this card on the field. Then you can spend a physical resource and discard this card to ready your hero. So in order to get that ready, you play this card down and you spend a physical resource and you have to discard this card to ready your hero. So it's three costs and you play the card. So it's kind of 4 cards that you're kind of getting rid of just to get one ready. Definitely not worth it. There's definitely cheaper ways to get it ready nowadays. Yeah, and then there's a card in the pool aspect, the Stick to Itiveness, which is a directly better version of this card, which is kind of a parody of it anyways, because it has Deadpool staying in this position instead of Spider-Man. But yeah, I mean, this card has definitely been power crept. Like, there's so many better versions of it, but at the same time, there are situations where it can be useful. Quicksilver is a good example that takes advantage of this card because he can generate a physical resource, and then whenever he readies, that resource generator can ready back up again. So if you have Tenacity with him, it can be super valuable. So it's very niche uses. Hasn't been directly outclassed just because of a hero like Quicksilver, but generally no other hero really wants this card. It's a pretty terrible card, even though there are very few uses for it. So that's it with all the basic cards here. Let's start with Aggression now. All right, so my computer ran out of storage, so it cut the video off because this video is getting too long. So I'm gonna go a little bit quicker and try to get through the rest of the aspects here in the core box. So I'm just gonna really give my opinion on if this card is still good. Hulk, still one of the best allies to this day for aggression. I think he's an A tier ally, super duper good. Tigra, I think she's still a good B tier ally. There are definitely worse allies that came out nowadays, but there are better versions, or not better versions of her, but better allies than her in aggression. Chase them down. After your hero attacks and defeats an enemy, remove 2 threat from scheme. This is still invaluable in aggression. 0 cost event, so you can always play it and then just remove 2 threat from scheme, which aggression is always based around defeating enemies and minions. Relentless Assault is a 2-cost event. Hero action attack, deal 5 damage to a minion. If you pay for this card using a physical resource, it gains overkill. So a very, very valuable card. 2 costs for 5 damage is so good, and it gets overkill. You can just bleed that over to the villain. So very good. Uppercut, 3-cost event for 5 damage. This card is arguably the worst card in aggression in the core box, at least. But yeah, it's not very good, but at the same time, it is a great way to get extra damage. And with stuff like Home Technique, there's ways to buff it. But yeah, definitely not the best card. But yeah, this card hasn't really been power crept because there's not like an outright better version of it. But it is not very good value. Next, we have the Power Aggression. So these are just double resources when paying for aggression cards. Attack Team is a 3-cost support. It comes in with 3 counters, and you exhaust it to remove 1 attack counter from it and do 2 damage to enemy. Not the worst card. Definitely doesn't get as much use nowadays. Yeah, it's very, very slow, and it's very expensive for what it does. But I mean, it can be situational if you want that slow damage, but I think there's definitely better versions of it. So this card's kind of been power crept. Combat Training is still an amazing card. 2-cost upgrade. Your hero gets +1 attack. So a very, very strong card. Yeah, just giving you that +1 attack is always going to be valuable, especially in aggression. So you have extra damage. Leadership, we have Hawkeye. So he is a 3-cost 3-cost ally. 1 thwart, 1 attack, 3 hit points. So he is still a very, very good ally. He's invaluable for minions. If you're playing a scenario with a lot of minions, he is still going to be one of your best allies today. I think he's an A tier card. Maria Hill is arguably the best leadership card in the game. Being a 2-cost ally, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points when she enters play. Every player can draw a card. super duper valuable. S tier, still one of the best cards in the game. Vision is a decent ally. I think he's like B tier slash C tier. He definitely has a situation where he can be useful, but there are different allies that may have a better thing than him, but he can also thwart compared to a lot of the other ones in his field, I guess. Get ready. Solid card, zero cost event. You can just ready up an ally. Definitely not bad. And it's gonna have his uses. Lead from the front. Two cost event. Choose a player. Each character that player controls gets +1 or +1 attack until the end of phase. This can be super valuable depending on the amount of allies that you have. Yeah, it can be useful. Definitely not the best card. I think there's better versions of it, like Blaze of Glory for Guardians is gonna be super duper good. But yeah, it still definitely has uses. Make the Call is still an amazing card. Zero cost event. You can pay the printed cost of an ally in any player's discard pile and put that ally directly into play. So you're basically summoning an ally from anywhere for any discard pile. So it's super duper good to this day. Power Leadership is your double resources for leadership. Triskelion is an amazing card. So to this day, just one cost support. You can increase your ally limit by 1. That's super duper valuable. And Inspired is your standard type of upgrade that you give on allies. So attach to an ally gets +1 thwart, +1 attack. Very good when you're Voltron. Still one of the, like, your standard card, and there's no directly better version of Inspired. Next we have Protection. We have Black Widow ally. She is still an amazing ally to this day. 3 cost, 2 thwart, 1 attack, 2 hit points. One of the few cards that can cancel an encounter card, right? But you do have to get another encounter card, but she's still very, very good with that effect. Yeah, definitely like A tier ally here. Luke Cage is 4 costs. He's a little more expensive, but having 5 hit points, having toughness, he's still one of the most durable allies in the game. He's not my favorite. I'll put him like B tier or C tier because he's so expensive, and he's very low tempo. But at the same time, he's an amazing stat line. And if you're looking for tankiness and longevity in ally, he's still one of the best. Counter Punch is a zero cost event. It's an attack after your hero in response. You use it during the villain phase most of the time, but you can use it during the hero phase as well. If your hero defends against an enemy attack, do damage to an enemy equal to your hero's attack. So still a useful card to this day depending on how much attack your hero has. I know it works really well with X-23, who's one of the newer heroes that came out. Then we have Get Behind Me. 1 cost event. When a treachery card is reviewed from the encounter deck, cancel its run-review effects. The villain attacks you instead. Very situational. Usually the villain attack you is going to hurt, but this can come in clutch to help you cancel a treachery card. So not useless, not power crept, just not that good. And the Power Protection, the double resources for a protection card. And we have the med team here. This comes with 3 med counters. Exhaust it and remove a med counter from here to heal 2 damage from friendly character. This card is not the best card because it's a little bit expensive, but it's still invaluable to this day. And I think there's a lot of use for it in any protection deck because you can heal allies, you can heal your friends, you can heal yourself. Very versatile and strong card with a good effect. It's just the fact that it's 3 costs and it's a little low tempo because you're only doing 2 per turn. But yeah, very good card still. And then the Armor Vest, your hero gets +1 defense. That's very good to this day. Just getting the extra defense for just 1 cost is invaluable. Indomitable, 1 cost upgrade after hero defense. Discard it and ready your hero. Still a very good card to this day. You get this upgrade on the field. If you defend, you can ready back up. So strong card. Then we have Justice, the last aspect. We have Daredevil ally. He's not the best ally, but no one really does what he does, right? He can thwart for 2 every single turn and then do 1 damage, ping off damage while he's thwarting. And then Jessica Jones is still one of the strongest Justice allies today. She's an A tier ally for me. Daredevil is more in the B tier because she's 3 costs, 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points, and she gets +1 thwart for each side scheme played. That is a super invaluable effect. The more side scheme you have, the more thwarts that she gets, and she can help you really save your situation. For Justice is a 2 cost event. You get 3 copies of this. 2 cost event, remove 3 from a scheme. 4 thwart instead if you pay for this card using at least 1 mental resource. So 2 for 4 is very valuable. It's still kind of the curve that we're looking for whenever we're shooting for thwart removal cards. So this is still a very good card. Great Responsibility, 0 cost event. When any amount of thwart we place on a scheme, you take its damage instead, but you must use it only hero form because it's a hero interrupt. This card is not very good. There's a better version of it literally in the pool card where it's not my responsibility because you can use it in your alter ego. Not the best card, but still has very situational uses for it. But yeah, I mean, definitely not a good card. Power of Justice is the double resources for Justice. You have Interrogation Room, max 1 per player. After you defeat a minion, exhaust this card and remove 1/3 from a scheme. This card is not very good because you have to defeat minions in order to get this off. So and it's only going to be 1 threat, so it's not the most valuable type of effect. It stays in play forever because it's a support, but yeah, not a good card at all. Surveillance Team, 2 cost support, comes in with 3 counters. You can exhaust this card, remove 1 snoop counter, and then remove 1/3 from a scheme. So this card is not very good, but at the same time, it is a support and it helps. It's very good in shield, right? So this card is more, it's become a lot of a trait lock card where if you're playing, it's not a trait lock, but it's become a good card for the shield archetype. If you're playing shield, you definitely want multiple copies of this card because it's very valuable with Monica Chang. She's buffed the card She's a newer card that's buffed this card. So this card is definitely still standing the test of time because it gets a lot of play in Shield, but it's not good by itself. Heroic Intuition is a 2-cost upgrade. Play under any player's control. Max one per player. Your hero gets +1 Thort, so very powerful card, just giving you that 1 extra Thort, which is invaluable. If you're 1 Thort hero, you get 2 Thort. If you're two Thort hero, you get 3, which is insane. So yeah, this is a very valuable card, just like the combat training in the armored vest. And then yeah, so that is it. I'm sorry for rushing there at the end, guys. We have the villains here. So in the core set, we have Rhino, we have Claw, and we also have Ultron as the 3 villains in Marvel Champions. And Ultron is still one of the strongest villains to this day. Definitely like a top 10 villain in difficulty for me, and very fun. Claw is also fairly difficult on Expert, and Rhino is usually easy, but he can be difficult on solo mode. So yeah, there we have it. I'm sorry I rushed there a little bit at the end, but that's kind of my overview of the core set. So for anyone that has not played Marvel Champions and is interested in the core set and just wants to know if it's going to be a good purchase, I think that this box right here is still going to be an amazing purchase. Everything to me still stands the test of time. Yeah, and I think that it's still one of the best products in Marvel Champions. It is required to play the game because it comes with all these status cards and tokens that you need. But even if it didn't have that and if it wasn't required, I would still recommend buying it, just because I mean we just went through all the cards in it, and I mean these cards are definitely needed. A lot of them are necessary for a lot of decks. You still have some of the strongest cards like Nick Fury, Maria Hill, and you still have some of the strongest heroes like Captain Marvel and Spider-Man. So yeah, that is my overview of the core set. Let me know if you guys agreed or disagreed with anything I said. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.